Mercedes has been under a serious spotlight since the 2026 season kicked off, and it has not cooled down for a second. The compression ratio loophole, the energy deployment edge, the whole customer team data drama, every situation sparked headlines, stirred tension in the paddock, and forced some kind of rule check or reaction. Now there's a fourth issue on the table, and this one hits different because it is not hidden in data sheets or radio chatter. Everyone watching can actually see it with their own eyes. On TV, the W17's front wing is acting a little strange, and people are catching it frame by frame. In some corners, it snaps shut instantly like everything is normal, but in others, it closes slowly, almost dragging the motion out in a way that feels off. Video breakdowns are suggesting the transition could be pushing close to 800 milliseconds, which is a big deal because the legal cap is 400 milliseconds. Now the FIA is digging in hard, trying to figure out if Mercedes pulled off a genius engineering trick or if they have been running something outside the limits this whole time. To really get why this is blowing up, you need to understand how the 2026 active aerodynamic system works, because this is not the old setup anymore. Formula One ditched DRS and replaced it with a full active aero system this season, changing how cars behave on track in a major way. Cars now switch between two modes: Z mode for corners, where the wings close up tight to give maximum downforce, and X mode for straights, where everything opens up to cut drag and boost top speed. Both the front and rear wings can shift between these modes, and that flexibility is totally allowed. But here's the catch. The rules are strict about how fast that movement happens. The FIA's technical regulations clearly say the transition between those two fixed positions cannot go beyond 400 milliseconds, no exceptions. That 400 millisecond limit is not random. It is there to stop teams from gaming the system in a big way. A wing that snaps shut faster gives the car instant downforce right as it hits the corner, while a wing that closes slower can stay in a low-drag setup a little longer into the braking zone, letting the car carry more speed before finally settling. Now imagine being able to adjust that timing depending on the corner. That would be a massive advantage. Quick closure for tight, slow corners to grab grip instantly, and slower closure for high-speed braking zones to squeeze out every bit of speed before slowing down. That is exactly what the W17 looks like it might be doing, and now the FIA is taking a serious look at it. What makes this even crazier is how the whole situation started. There was no official protest at first, no big announcement, just a social media post that caught fire. The account, DRS Unlocked, dropped a slow-motion breakdown of the W17's front wing across different corners, and suddenly people started asking questions. At the Chinese Grand Prix, the footage, slowed down to a fraction of real speed, showed something that did not look normal at all. In Shanghai's Turn 9, which is a shorter and quicker braking zone, the front wing flap snapped shut fast, jumping straight into the high downforce position almost instantly, like everything was perfectly within limits. But then came Turn 14, and this is where things got interesting. That corner has a long, heavy braking zone, with cars dropping from over 300 kilometers per hour down to around 90. In that same situation, the W17's wing closed way more slowly, stretching the transition out in a way that raised eyebrows. At its slowest, the timing looked close to 800 milliseconds, double the legal limit of 400. The reaction from engineers across the paddock was not doubt or dismissal, it was full attention, because this could be huge. If that video analysis is correct, then Mercedes may have unlocked something every aerodynamic expert has been chasing since the 2026 rules dropped. We are talking about corner-by-corner balance control, the kind of precision teams have been dreaming about but struggling to actually pull off. Formula Tecnica, known for being one of the most detail-focused Italian F1 outlets, stepped in with a deeper breakdown, and they did not brush this off either. They reported that the FIA has already started taking a closer look behind the scenes. Their takeaway was clear: the legality of this system is still up in the air, and no official ruling has been made yet on whether those transition times cross the line. Their technical dive goes even deeper into what Mercedes might have built here, and it starts to make a lot of sense when you break it down. When a car brakes hard from high speed, the aerodynamic balance shifts forward aggressively. The rear loses stability as the wing opens, and if both wings move at the exact same rate, that balance shift can become unpredictable and uncomfortable for the driver, especially in heavy braking zones. This is not just theory either. We already saw a similar issue hit Ferrari in China. With their setup, the rear wing rotated differently compared to the front, creating a messy aerodynamic imbalance right in the middle of the transition. Hamilton spun at turn 6 when the wing closed unexpectedly into a braking zone. That moment exposed just how risky these systems can be when the timing is off. Now here is where things get really interesting. Mercedes looks like they may have fixed that exact problem. The W17 appears to adjust how quickly the front wing closes, depending on the type of corner, potentially keeping the car stable while still squeezing out maximum performance where it matters most. At turn 14 in Shanghai, that long high-speed braking zone, the W17's front flap does something that really stands out. Instead of snapping shut, it closes slowly, almost stretching the motion across the entire braking phase. That means the aerodynamic balance does not just jump from rear to front. It shifts gradually, giving the driver a much smoother and more stable feel right when control matters most. Now compare that to a shorter braking zone like turn 9, and the behavior flips. There, the driver needs instant front-end bite and a sharp turn-in, so the same flap closes much faster, pushing the balance forward quickly to help the car rotate. That contrast is exactly why people are raising eyebrows, because it looks like the wing is reacting differently depending on the corner. What is still unclear is how Mercedes could be pulling this off. Is it something active, like GPS-linked software adjusting the timing corner by corner, or something more subtle and passive, like how aerodynamic forces interact with the flap at different speeds? That part is still a mystery, but the end result is hard to ignore: a front wing that behaves differently across the track, dialing in balance in a way no other team seems to match. Now here is where things get even more complicated. The FIA's position is not as simple as calling it legal or illegal right away. The 2026 Active Aero rules were designed to be fully transparent, with every wing actuator tied to sensors that feed live data straight into the FIA's standard ECU. In theory, if the W17 really is taking up to 800 milliseconds to close, that data should already be showing up clearly in the system and triggering alerts instantly. And that leads to the biggest argument in Mercedes' favor right now. If they were truly breaking the 400 millisecond limit, the FIA's own telemetry would likely have caught it already. The fact that no penalties or official decisions have dropped suggests one of two things. Either the sensor data does not match what the videos seem to show, or the FIA is still digging through the details, trying to interpret exactly what is happening. But there is also a more complex angle that has not been ruled out yet. The rules are very clear on one specific detail: the maximum transition time between the two fixed wing positions. But here is where things get tricky. If Mercedes designed a system where the actuator itself finishes the movement within that 400 millisecond limit, but the aerodynamic forces on the carbon fiber wing make it physically settle a bit slower afterward, then technically the actuator is legal, even if the wing looks slower on camera. That right there is the grey area the FIA is now stuck dealing with, and it is not a simple call at all. This is not just about yes or no. It is about what exactly the rule is measuring, what the sensors are actually recording, and whether the real-world behavior of the wing at high speed is fully captured by the data teams are required to provide. The difference between those details could decide everything. Now raise the stakes, because if the FIA rules against Mercedes, the consequences would hit hard. Any car found running an illegal aerodynamic system can be disqualified from every race where that system was used. If the W17's front wing has been outside the allowed limits since the opening round in Australia, then multiple race results could suddenly be under review. We are talking about Melbourne, the China Sprint, and the Chinese Grand Prix, all potentially on the line. Russell won Australia, Antonelli won China. The points from those races are a huge part of the championship picture right now. Mercedes is leading the constructors' standings, and Russell is sitting at the top of the drivers' table. If disqualifications come into play, this would not just tweak the standings, it could completely flip the title fight on its head. What makes this situation even more intense is how quietly it could reshape the entire grid if things swing one way or the other. Other teams are not just watching, they are studying every frame, every data point, trying to figure out if Mercedes has found something they missed. Because if this system is declared legal, it does not stay a Mercedes advantage for long. Everyone will rush to copy it, and the competitive balance could shift overnight. At the same time, you can bet rival teams are pushing hard behind the scenes, asking questions and demanding clarity from the FIA. No one wants to be left behind if there is a loophole sitting in plain sight, especially one that can deliver performance corner by corner like this. The pressure on the governing body is building fast, because whatever decision they make will set a precedent that could define how active aero is developed moving forward. Inside Mercedes, the situation is just as critical, even if it is not being said out loud. If they are confident in their design, they will stand firm and defend it. But if there is even a small risk that the interpretation could turn against them, every race weekend from here becomes a gamble with massive consequences attached, and the clock is ticking. The longer this goes without a clear ruling, the bigger the tension grows. Not just in the paddock, but in the championship fight itself, where every single point could end up being questioned. If this situation goes all the way, it could completely reshape the 2026 championship story before the season even hits race 4. That is how big this is. But everything depends on the FIA delivering a clear and solid technical decision, and that is not guaranteed at all. The whole debate around actuator timing versus aerodynamic load behavior is complex, and there is no easy answer sitting on the table right now. The more realistic short-term move might be a technical directive, laying out exactly how transition timing should be measured and under what conditions it counts. That kind of clarification would likely force Mercedes to tweak their system moving forward, but still keep their current results safe. Even then, the bigger picture does not go away, because this is now the fourth major controversy tied to Mercedes in just 3 races. We are talking about the compression ratio loophole, the customer team data situation, the energy deployment timing debate, and now this front-wing drama. At some point, people stop calling it coincidence and start wondering if this is a pattern, a deliberate approach to push every grey area in the rulebook as far as it can go. The FIA has been watching closely, but there has been no official protest from any team, and Mercedes has stayed completely quiet. Meanwhile, the cars are lining up for Japan, and the W17's front wing is still behaving the exact same way it has since Australia, like nothing has changed. Suzuka is about to add even more fuel to this situation, with fresh footage, new corner comparisons, and engineers across the paddock analysing every tiny movement. But here is the twist. The real answer will not come from what we see on screen. It sits in the sensor data that only the FIA and Mercedes fully have access to. And until that is revealed, the question just keeps getting louder. Let me know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dive F1 analysis like this.